On May 1st, 1992, the small community of Lindhurst, California was forever changed when a former student opened fire at Lindhurst High School, killing 4 people and holding over 80 hostages in one of the earliest high school shootings in U.S. history. In a deeply personal episode, I reflect on what it was like to be an onlooker that day, racing to the school, not knowing if my sister was still alive, or watching our town cling together in the face of unimaginable grief. I'll also be joined by a fellow survivor to revisit the pain, healing, and why these stories still matter. Because trauma may fade from the headlines, but it never disappears, and people who live through it, the healing is lifelong. Hey friends, real quick before we jump into the episode, I created a song for my high school and for a community basically that's been through a lot, but still seems to stand strong together. So at the end of the episode, listen to my song. Hope you like it. This one's for you, LHS. Hey friends, I'm here with Tanya Cameron, formerly Tanya Austin from my high school years. She was 1 year younger than me. And so we are good friends. We grew up in the same neighborhood. Those of you who read my book, she is a Park Circle friend. And today we're brought together because we're going to remember something that happened to our community, well, to Tanya, and to my high school. In May 1st, 1992, we were one of the first high school shootings out there, and it was pretty horrific. Please help me welcome Tanya. I was going to say Austin, sorry. Cameron. Sorry, girl,
So
I love
good.
you.
Thanks for having me. And just to start this off, I'm one of the very fortunate ones that was not directly in the line of fire that day. However, I was involved in a roundabout way that day. So, but yeah, thanks for having me.
Same here. Well, it's in my book, but what I talked about in my book was basically I was more of an onlooker. My sister was attending. You were a senior and she was a freshman.
Mhm.
And so she was there, but she, like you, was able to get out, or she got out. I'm not sure. I don't want to go through your story, but she was one of the ones. She was in the next building over. What's the building next to the C building? The math and science one, right? What's it called? Is it like, I forget what letter that was. Is it D?
I can't remember what letter it was. I just knew it as the Math and Science
Yeah,
Building, but I know it had a letter, like,
yeah. Yeah, I
I
think
don't know.
we called the C building, which, by the way, this
Mhm.
building, if it, just to let everybody know, it was like an open concept type of environment. I mean, we had folding partitions that separated some of the rooms. And we had open doors. So there was like no doorways or no doors, right? And it was like
Mm.
a U-shaped type building, right? It kind of went like downstairs, upstairs, and then the sides.
Yes, yes, and the library sat downstairs in the middle, so you could if you were on the 2nd floor, you could actually look downstairs,
Oh my God, I
and then the east side of it was all windows in the class the upstairs didn't have windows, on the east side, but the downstairs where all your social sciences were, like
civic.
economics and US history, and I forget us down there on the east side had windows. And then you had the drama class, and
Oh yeah,
Spanish
I had
was
drama.
down there
I had
and some.
drama. I had the drama. I did take drama one. We
Mhm.
all did nothing in drama.
Yes.
I don't remember one thing we did in drama, but sit around. It's
I was
crazy.
a band geek,
Oh yeah.
so
Well,
yeah,
I
band
was
and
I
choir,
did
but
band photography, so I would chase you guys
mhm,
around and take pictures of you guys.
right.
That was just a way for me to get out of class my senior year.
Yeah, I think
That was
yeah. Well,
fun.
my senior year, I had 2 TA classes because I didn't wanna
Yeah,
take an act and
me too.
psychology was one class because I was like, "I don't want to do anything other than, like, just get this year over
Yeah,
with,"
get
you
through
know?
it. Right,
So
exactly. Well, you know
Right.
what? That's crazy because it happened at the end of the okay, so school
Mhm.
ends in June back in Northern California,
Yes.
like June 6th or 4th or whatever. They're like the first week of June,
Yeah, I
right?
wanna say our graduation that year was, like, on the 4th of June. I know our prom was supposed to happen, like, like, the week of or, like, 2 weeks from no, it was, like, 2 weeks after the actual, like, incident at school, and we ended up having it got delayed or pushed back, and we ended up having a prom, but you know,
I mean, who wants to celebrate when, some of your classmates got killed? Okay, so back to I mean, I always digress and go off in tangents because I haven't seen Tanya like forever, and she was like a really good friend of mine. And I
yes,
talk about this in the book too, is that I didn't foster my friendships after high school, which is if it wasn't for Facebook, I would never know what they were doing with themselves. And
same, same.
terrible. I've been terrible, but we can pick back up where we left off because that's the kind of friends we are. We all were like we're like family, dude. I mean, Park Circle.
Yep.
It's like we're closer than our to our friends than we were to our family. At least in my case, that was the case. So,
Well, and
um,
back in those days, that's kinda like how it was, we played outside till the streetlights came on, and
like go
we
outside,
kinda were able to ride our bicycles 5 miles,
right? That's
walk to the bus stop by ourselves,
that's so
so,
true. It's
um,
so true. It's like we weren't allowed inside. It's like we weren't allowed, like, at all. And, like, when
yeah.
kids were like, "How come you're drinking out of hoses? Why don't you just go to the sink?" It's like, "Because we weren't allowed inside to get near a sink. We only had the hose. That's how we drank."
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for
Okay,
sure.
so let me just okay, so what happened in my case was I was getting out of work and it was 4 o'clock, and this had all started around 10 minutes to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right? It was like right before two
Yes.
o'clock, towards the end of the
Mhm.
day. I think school lets out at what, 3 or 2:45
It
or
2:40, I think we got out at 2:40, if I remember right.
so end of day,
Yeah,
May.
end of day.
It was not hot, but it wasn't it was in the evenings it was cold, and then it's that kind of like thing. So I got out of work because I was working a half an hour away in Rockland at a preschool. And I get out, and that first thing I hear is they never called it active shooter. They called it, I don't forget what they call it. They never coined the phrase active shooter until later in the years. So it wasn't called an active shooter. I think it was just a gunman, at the
Mhm.
school.
Yeah, I believe so, if I remember correctly.
So I jumped,
Active shooter didn't really come into play until Columbine.
right. Oh, I don't even think,
Actually, I think it was after Columbine.
I agree.
So
I agree. This was way before Columbine. What was Columbine, like
mhm.
97 or something? I think.
No, I wanna say it was in the 2000s Columbine happened,
Right.
and I feel like our school we were the actual first
First.
school, like, where a
Well,
former
actual teachers.
student or a student came to the school and opened fire, and I feel like we always get lost in when
Well,
they
what
talk
happened
about
was
these things,
I talk about this in my book.
So
Well, this is what happened. The Rodney King verdict came out on the 29th of April. And so then the
correct.
next day was the riots, or that day and the
Mhm.
next day ensued all the
Yep, I
riots.
remember all that.
And then the next day was our school shooting. So it
Yes.
was like we were lost in the news, and I don't think the cable news wasn't like what it is today, where every like 24 hours you got crazy stuff happening all the time. This is just local news, and if somebody else picked it up, great, but it wasn't really something that that was televised and was out there. I think had they really looked at our school, maybe Columbine might not have happened. They might have put some safeguards
I
in,
agree,
you know.
I agree. I
But
think there was a lot of things from that I mean, we will get into that later, but looking back on it 33 years later and over the years of all the emotions that have come out of that day and as time goes on, I look at just the overall situation in a very different mindset or frame than I did, even 20 years ago. Like some of that anger has dissipated a little bit. and maybe a little confusion has dissipated. There's a lot of emotions that have come from this, and like I said, I'm a very fortunate person who was able to go on and be productive and not be injured or not be, you know, gone from this
On the
world
head
due
from
to
it.
it.
Oh, gone. Yeah, I mean, there are some people. Okay, so let's get to this.
Yeah, we'll
Let's get
dive
to it.
into it, but
So
living in the community up until about I moved out of well, I was living in Wheatland at the time, but I moved out of Wheatland in 2014. But I had only lived in Wheatland about a year before that. I was in the Park Circle area up until then.
Wheatland, 20 minutes north.
So
Sorry, I'm terrible
southeast,
at
yeah,
directions.
like southeast of there, yeah. So
I'm terrible. I can get lost. I swear. I left. I went to Utah. I ended up in Idaho. So I tell you, when I tell you I get lost, I freaking get lost.
yeah, that's a big difference. It's pretty, yeah.
So Wheatland's about 20 minutes, and I was just the day it happened. I was in Rockland, which is like about 10 minutes down the road from Wheatland. So that's where I was
Mhm.
coming from, and so you know what road I was like speeding down the 70 as fast as I could get there. It's right, it's a 70, right?
65,
Oh, 65.
actually. Yeah, 65.
My memory.
Yeah.
So and I got there, and they well, let me get to that part because I think I'm jumping ahead. So what happened was, let's get started. It happened like 10 minutes before 2. And where were you at that time? If you can get us the story from
I
your point of view.
I actually was a TA for the front office in my
Every
last
senior was.
period. I actually had just walked out of the, I had walked out of the west door of the C building after I had just dropped off whatever those notes were that you would deliver to the teachers. I forget what they call them. I had walked out that door, and as I was coming around the building, she had to kind of come around the back around the building to get to the office. I heard three very distinct pops. And I got like this eerie, like gut wrenching, like feeling. And I'm like, those sounded like gunshots because I had grown up hunting and being around or just target shooting, whatever. We did
Yeah,
those
like, I
things
wouldn't
back
have
then.
known. I wouldn't have known what
Mhm.
that was. I would have thought, and this is
But
something. Go
they
ahead.
weren't loud enough. No, maybe I don't know, maybe the base is doing something because we live near the Air Force Base, like, there was and so I came back into the office, and I was waiting for the next whatever I was supposed to do, and all of a sudden, the phones like, I see kids we looked out the front office windows, and there were just people, like, running out of the building,
Like,
and just running like chaos everywhere. So, by then, they were in the quad area, which was, like, the centralized area of the school, and people were coming in the office, and phones then, you know, kinda started being called from the rooms into the office,
I'm grabbing my tissue
and
because I'm sorry.
oh, no, no, you're fine. And so, the main secretary, it wasn't Mrs. Barber, it was I forget what her name
Oh,
was, and our principal
Tracy?
not Tracy, she was in the attendance
Oh.
office. It was the other older lady, and then, our principal, Mr. Ward, were like, "You need to go over here. We want you to stay right here." And so they put me and it was, another kid, and I don't wanna use his name because he's no longer with us as of, I think, last year or the year before, but I don't wanna use names just in
No,
case
I
anyone
agree.
yeah, people don't want their names out there.
Right.
But him and I sat there for a minute. About that time, the substitute there was a girl that had come in just completely, had been shot, had up in, like up in her chest area. And by then 911 had been called. And the substitute Spanish teacher, older gentleman, was working in there that day, and about that time, him and a couple other people with him had brought like, walking him in, had his shoulder completely, like, out. And I didn't panic about it because I had been a lifeguard since freshman year, and I knew first aid, and all I could do was tell the secretary, "This is what you guys need to do." Like, my brain just, like, compartmentalized the entire
Was the nurse
situation.
not on staff at the time? Our nurse? Because we had a nurse, right? The one
Yeah, by then
with the
she
curly
was
hair?
coming in, and so then the secretary tells me, "No, just go back over there, we've got it handled." And I don't even remember where the nurse was because there was so much chaos happening. And so so by then the secretary says, "We need you guys to go hide over here." And so me and the other student went and hid in a broom closet. And it was then that I, like, started thinking, "Oh my god, what if," because by then we're hearing all the commotion going on out there in the office, because it wasn't like it was a fully enclosed broom closet. It was open on the ceiling, and we could still hear everything
Or
going on.
there was any doors in that damn school. Like, barely ever was there
No,
a
it
door.
had a curtain, which was even crazier. It was this curtain that we had to close, and I'm like, I've watched scary movies my entire life, and I'm thinking to myself, "Oh my god," like, they always go for the like, curtain, but,
Why did they just I
um
mean, now I mean, wouldn't they say, "Take off and get the F out of" like, "Go towards
well,
the cemetery." Like, that's where I would have just sent you guys.
by then, at this point, we're hearing what's happening, and kids have come in, and not only that, all the injured people waiting for the ambulance to get there were talking at this point. They're going, "It's the," and it was just this hysteria, but then you could hear all these things happening, and so we knew it was a shooter. We knew that he had just come in the building and opening, like, he was just walking around. By this point, we thought he would nobody knew where he was at this point because everyone that could get out got out. And and then that we're starting, you know to hear just all the commotion. About that time is when EMS showed up, the sheriff's department, the ambulances, and then that caused a whole other. So what they did with us, the ladies from the attendance office that day came and got us and put us into the cafeteria, and by now all the doors are locked. And they put us, because there was like a doorway between the office and the cafeteria,
Right,
and so they put us into the kitchen of the cafeteria with a couple parents who were there waiting to pick up their kids, and then also with other students. And so by now, we're hearing from these other students who had seen part of it happen or whatever, and now we're hearing a little bit more. The parents are freaking out. They're like, "What about my child?"
right.
Yada yada yada. And so then they ended up somebody came in, and I don't know who it was, but by this point, I'm going, "I don't know where my brother is." Not remembering that my brother was at a swim meet that day
Right,
and
right.
during that time period, but I'm like, "I
Oh,
don't know where I don't know what
right.
class he has. I don't know what class he has." And then my mom worked for the school district at a completely different school, and I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, my mom is gonna be so worried."
Yeah.
And so they had us they took us someone came in, and I don't know who it was, but they're like, "We need to get out of here. There's a bus waiting for you at the football field." And if you remember, the football field wasn't like just a walk across the parking lot.
So
Like, it was way out
I'm
there.
gonna step in real quick. So, from
Yeah.
what I gathered from my sister who was in the she also too dropped off a note in that first, like, room, like the Spanish room, and then, she went back to the science and math place, and once she just got back, through the doors, she could hear a bunch of, like you said, like fire, well,
Mhm.
gunshots, but she thought people were thinking like it was construction sounds. They didn't know like what it was because nobody knows what gunshots because nobody, well, not like unless you're out shooting or know what it sounds like
Mhm.
you would know what that sounds like. So, um, then all of a sudden, the principal Ward goes in there and says, everybody out now, run to the football field, go, don't stop, go, go, go. And everybody just started, that's where they all went was to the football field. And so that's how that got evacuated. I'm thinking like, so that ties in kind of like what you said, like you ended up
Mhm.
being picked up at the football field. And same with my sister. She ended up was like in total shock. And so she fainted. And then when the buses took them wherever well, what happened? So after you got on the bus, what happened next?
Well, I'm not a runner. I've never been a runner. I've tried to be a
No, not with
runner.
me,
It
right?
just doesn't like even and when I was really young, like I just never was that person. I can walk for 20 miles a day just fine, but I cannot run any sort of distance.
Well, because you have a lot
Even
of upper chest. You always had that upper chest. Like we all thought, we all wished we had your upper body like
oh,
when we were in high school.
well, Well, thank you, but, it really I wish I had less of that. But, no, so, I guess people pay good money for it nowadays. I don't know, but whatever. Like, so we all ran, and I do not remember running from the cafeteria to where the buses were, which was on the far side of the
The track
football field.
down
All
the
I remember was we got to the other side of the football field in the track, and we had to wait there for the next bus to come because they had already taken students to the junior high school Yuba Gardens, which was across the freeway from us. Other students just ran across the freeway to get to Yuba Gardens. Like,
don't
literally,
like
just
we're going.
they when they were
Probably would
told
be
to
me.
go, they yeah.
If you were
Or
with your
ones
buddies,
that
I would have
escaped.
just
Yeah, so we just went and then they took us to Yuba Gardens and we come off and by then you have kids that either were in now you're kind of concentrated with the kids that were in the building, the kids who were in other buildings, the kids who saw things firsthand and we start hearing names of like, "Oh my gosh, this is what," and by that point, they didn't really know who the shooter was. It wasn't
well,
until later.
it's because you guys were a little bit younger than him. He was a
Well, I knew him.
yeah,
Oh, that's the crazy part. My
I
friend,
did.
he was at school with me my freshman year, so I did know him, you know, and he lived not far from us. He rode our bus and, those things. So, um and so those things were coming out, and by then parents are showing up. And of course, they're wanting answers and you're just waiting it out and you're waiting it out. And now we're hearing that he has hostages and he's not letting anyone go and so on and so
And
on.
so
And we waited.
what happened was though, let's just so people know what happened was kids were hiding in whatever crevice. Like I said, we didn't have a lot of doors.
Mhm,
Like we did have some broom closets here and there, but sometimes they were locked. They were hiding behind curtains and whatever door jams they could hide behind. They did that, and he he went upstairs and he had a bunch of kids upstairs and he made other kids go downstairs to bring up anybody hiding. And if they
mhm,
didn't come back, they didn't, if they didn't find anybody, fine. But if they didn't come back themselves, then he was going to shoot a friend. And so those kids had to make a decision whether to run, and take off and save yourself or come back because you weren't sure if he was going to shoot somebody. You know what I mean?
mhm.
And
Yeah.
so, that's what the kids did. They went bound to try to find people. And then, I don't know, it's funny because they did a movie on this, Siege at Johnson High, I think it's called. You can find it on Prime Video. It had Henry, I can never say his name, Henry Winkler, right? And, Freddie Prince Jr. and,
Yeah.
Ricky Schroeder. They were, 3 of the stars in the movie, and there were some accounts in there that were pretty close, like, it was hard to watch. I can't watch it, actually. I watched it once, and I can't watch it, but it's not an easy thing to
Yeah,
watch, but,
I watched it once, and it took me I had to watch it in segments. I didn't watch it all at one shot because it was just too much. I could probably sit through it today, like, fully through it, but it would still be hard.
oh god.
Like,
I mean, I can't I'm
yeah,
sitting here having a hard time talking
and
about it.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's
It's like
not easy.
and if you've ever known somebody that's been killed with a gun in your school where the place you feel is you're supposed to feel the most safest, and your friends that you went to track meets with and you went to dances with and signed your yearbooks and, were friends with, they're no longer with us because somebody killed them in a brutal, brutal way, you know?
Well, and I would say I know that, well, one of those students was my brother's age that was killed, and we had known him, like, our families had known him since kindergarten, you know?
The demon?
And,
Well, I mean,
the
it's
other 2
the
students
the name
I knew very well.
yeah.
Like, one was in band with me all those years and choir, and the other one was a good friend, like, since freshman year, and so this wasn't like these were kids who didn't know. This was a community where kids literally grew up their entire lives together.
So
And
my mom and my sister were sitting with well, I talk about it in the book and the names are out there, so I'm just gonna say his name is Beeman. And,
Mhm,
my mom was sitting with his aunt when she got the news that her son was killed. And,
mhm.
my mom was there for moral support and everybody was being like told what was going on and some were getting great news but they had approached my mom and them not in a way that you would be getting the good news. And she's like, asked my mom to come with them into the room. And my mom and my sister were there. And, then they got the news and this boy, um, there was a girl, I'm not gonna say her name, but the girl was in it, had the gun right in her face, and Beeman
Mhm.
said no and pushed her out of the way and took
Yeah,
the full force of the shot right to the temple and laid on the ground suffering for 30 minutes. But he's a hero. I mean, he'll always, in my mind, he saved that girl. And it's just sad. I mean, my sister, she had borrowed 50 cents for lunch that day from Beeman, and so when at the funeral, she dropped it in his casket could to pay him
yeah,
back. But I
yeah.
mean, so I mean, these are friends. They're, you know, Jason White I was close
Yep.
with, and I didn't know Judy, but in Mr. Brins, I didn't have him as a teacher. I had what's the other guy's name? The big tall one.
Schnabel, Mr.
Yes.
Schnabel.
Why can't I remember
Yeah.
the name? It's the craziest
I
name.
had Mr. Brenz, so I was, like, really lucky. Cool dude, like,
Yeah.
great teacher.
He always
I
I didn't have him in my class, but every time I'd walk through, he'd be like, "Hey, Jessica," like he knew my name. You know what I mean? He knew who I
Mhm,
was.
mhm. Yeah.
And he seemed like a sweet person, like a very nice guy.
Young guy, and I wanna say at the time, he was only, like, 34
Mm,
or something. He was really young. Jason, good friend, like, we were great friends from freshman year. He didn't go to junior high school with me. I don't remember if he moved there or if he went to, like, Yuba Gardens or, because we had Alicia School and Yuba Gardens, and we
right,
all kinda met in the middle
right.
at Lindhurst, but a lot of us knew just through community sports, community events, or whatever, or moving.
Birthday parties. I mean, we all
Mhm.
lived. I mean,
Yeah.
we weren't a very big town. We had Olivehurst, Linda, Marysville, Yuba City, and we were in the
Mhm.
Linda Olivehurst type area.
Correct.
And it wasn't, all 4 places combined, it was less than 40,000 people, and
Mhm.
you're talking about a condensed and then you also had the Air Force Base, so that was there.
Well, and I wanna say at the time, Lyndhurst's overall population of students was only about 1,000 kids.
Yeah, I always heard it was 1,200, And then like
About, yeah, somewhere in there.
or less, or less.
Mhm.
Our freshman year, we had like 350 students, but we ended up with like 100. I put 120 in my book, but I think it was 170 actually we graduated with. So like
I
people
think that was
started
about us too. It
like
was
you
about
started
180 or
yeah, but not
179 or
not a huge
something.
class, which means we were all super close, and we all went to the same schools. And I mean, the ones that lived here didn't rent or whatever, because some people came and went, but the ones that
Right.
really lived here and grew up here, we all knew each other. I mean, it's weird because my little neighborhood, we're all Park Circle, but I was like, you were a little bit too far for my Hot Wheels, so I couldn't really ride my Hot
Mhm.
Wheels far down. But I had my own little clique, and then in high
Yeah.
school and junior highs where and funny thing is, like Janelle, I went to kindergarten with her in first grade, so we all went to, and then I
Mhm.
ended up going to private school, which is a whole nother story. But, and then I reconnected with everybody at Alicia School. And so,
Yeah.
but yeah, we're all, like you said, we were just, and you know what? We were a melting pot of all races and we loved each other and it wasn't phony.
Yeah.
And that's why it's hard for us to, when people are talking about racism now. I mean, I know that it's there, but it's hard when you didn't grow up that way, or you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yes. So at Yuba Gardens, yes, you had by now there being no like parents are by now 6 or 8 hours has passed by, and we knew that the police were there. FBI had come on or whoever, and they had negotiators for the hostages, and he wasn't giving
You
up.
had like between 60 and 80, correct?
Yeah, I think, depending on I know at some point yeah, at one point, I wanna say it was, like, 76 or 80 hostages, and
I
then
wanted to say 80, yeah.
slowly they all like, they were negotiating them out of there a little bit, but, and so now we're getting, like, real accounts of things, and, the like hysteria has kind of calmed and everyone's just on eggshells waiting to hear if their child is one of them. Because really we didn't know how many were actually shot, how many were actually killed. Like we really didn't by that point nobody was really giving out any of those statistics, and so all we knew, so every time a news a report or something or another student would show up, it was like they were being kind of bombarded a little bit, I felt like. And it could just be my memory of like things, but that they were being questioned immediately by a police officer or somebody like, and then of course, then everyone else wants answers. And so there wasn't really a distinct, we knew that four people were in fact killed. We knew that pretty early in the, like, the evening, because by now we're well into the evening. I mean, we're at, like, 7, 8
Okay,
o'clock at
so
night.
let me back up for a smidge. So when I first got there, I went straight to the school and I was like, what's going on? Like, because you can only come up to the right to the school area if you were an affected member and I was like, everybody in our community affected. So wherever, like I
Right.
parked and I went up and I was like looking for my sister, like, cause I thought I don't know why I was thinking like, where's my sister? I'm like, and,
Yeah.
and they were like, then I was like starting to freak out. And then somebody came up and hugged me. And I don't even remember who it was. It was just somebody like, it didn't have to be anybody I knew. It was like, that's our community. Someone just
Mhm.
came up and gave me a hug. And then I think it was Happy. I want to say my memory says it was Happy, but I'm pretty sure it probably wasn't. But it was somebody that said, Hillary's okay. She's with your mom. And or no, sorry, back up. She said Hillary was sent to the hospital, is what it was. And I was like, then I started freaking out and I didn't know where to go.
Mhm.
So I went home and And my sister was standing in the living room, and I just knew everything was going to be okay because obviously she was fine. But what had happened was she fainted, and my mom took her to Dr. Toller, which is in my book. Dr. Toller was the guy we did everything with. Anyway, and so just because her body was in shock, she was in so much shock, and she was fine. So then we all decided to go help the community. So my mom and my
Mhm.
sister left, went to Yuba Gardens. I went, asked everybody in the neighborhood around my little circle area for blankets. And because it was May and it was starting to get cold, and it was
And
probably
it's
about
dark. Right.
it was around 6 o'clock ish, I went to KFC and I went in there and
Mhm.
I don't have any money, but all my friends are out in the front of the school. We're waiting to see and they're all, and moms and dads are out there. Can you donate chicken? They gave me 10 buckets of chicken.
Mhm.
So I took blankets and chicken and I drove my little VW bug with it full of it was stacked full of blankets and chicken. And I got out there and I started just passing out blankets and chicken. People are like, oh my God, thank you. Because it was cold. Northern California, it's freezing in May. So anyways, that's that. So then right at that time is when they told me, and it could have been around that time, 7-ish around. And they came out and they said, 4 people they know 4 are dead. And we all just started crying out loud. And it was
Yeah.
so you know, it was just
You just
hard to take.
Yeah, at Yuba Garden, so when we were there, I remember initially getting there and just kind of being in this, not like, you're in just this, like, zone of you're hearing all of these things going on, and you're, like, looking around for any familiar, like, and it's not that you don't recognize the people that are there, but you are, like, just searching out, like, for me, it was my brother, and then it dawned on me my brother was at a swim meet, and so I saw my mom. My mom was there, and I just, like, went to her, and then eventually the bus showed up from the swim team, and I remember them coming off going, "What is going on?" Like, they had no idea. They did not tell them on the bus, if I remember correctly. I'd have to ask my brother or one of his best friends who I see on a regular basis, like, who if they were told, but I just remember them coming off the bus going, "What is going on? What has happened?
Like, why
What"
aren't we
you
getting
know?
dropped off at school? Why are
And
we
I
here,
just
right?
remember, like, hugging my brother going, "I had no idea where you were until, like, recently, and I was so scared." And and then my mom and I and my brother, like, took and about that time, my dad, who worked in Vacaville, which was, like, an hour and 20 minutes away, showed up, and he wasn't supposed to be home that week because 'cause he'd go on call and he'd have to be there, and I just remember hugging him. And because I wasn't expecting him to be there, but, like, you're just so grateful.
I'm sorry. I can't help it. I'm just like,
No, you're fine. Yeah, but,
it's
I
just
mean, you're
hard. It's
just
so hard. People don't understand. I mean,
yeah,
it's like
you're
just
just
even talking
so
about it, it's difficult. And I'm not even one that was injured or in the room. And
no.
it 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 touches you in a big way.
It's just huge because, like you said, the community was so small when we were there, and we were all intertwined from
Very
kindergarten
young.
up,
Right.
and you knew these people. You knew these were friends. These were family friends. These were your parents' friends' kids. These were and so to have something like this happen and from out of nowhere, which in hindsight, they had canceled our rally that day because there was a bomb threat. Kids liked to play that, like to get out of school early or whatever, right? But there was a supposedly, I don't even know if that was a legit thing, but that was the rumor mill
Did he
going
did
around
it?
school. No, 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 that somebody had called in a bomb threat, which had happened a few times while we were going
It
to
happened when I went to high school there too, the carrot
because
rallies.
because they would generally let us out of school early,
Yeah.
and so kids would do it to get out of school. So they canceled the rally, which in hindsight was our saving grace in the amount of, and I say that in the utmost, like,
Oh, you would have been in a fishbowl. He would have came in and just
right. And I mean, I don't make light of the injuries he did cause and the deaths he caused, but had we all been in the gym together, one, getting out of the gym would have been, we would have been, like you said, in a fishbowl. And so,
I bet telling you right now, one of our Blazers would have freaking tackled his ass, though. I'm telling you.
oh yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, we would have mobbed him at
Right.
some point, you know? So, but
But
in
then
the interim, but
again,
until it sinks in what's going on, like, you don't realize, like, it's not an in the moment thing that you even realize what's going on. Like, your brain just doesn't, you're just kind of like at in shock at first, like, is this really happen? Like, what is really going on? And then it clicks and and then the chaos like ensues, you know? So there was that. And then as the night went on, I think it was finally at like midnight or something, we got word we're all still at Yuba Gardens. Nobody wants to go home because we want to make sure everyone's safe and help out the families that need help and so on and so on. And I know that there was a group that by then had gathered at the local hospital, and then some of those students that had been shot had to be transported to Sacramento, to one of the hospitals there. And so you had kind of our community split between like 3 different spots supporting each other, and so we're all waiting for word. And this is a day and age where we don't have cell phones. You're not getting instant
no
communication.
social media.
Um, now by now, the news has showed up at the school, and at Yuba Gardens, the reporters, like, have showed up and, and nobody's really wanting to talk about it, but,
Right.
there's a microphone in your face, and so there's that, but I think it was about midnight or pretty close to it, somewhere in there, that we got word that he had given up. They had him in custody. All the kids had been let go. And then it was just from there. And then it's kind of like everything just comes to this like baseline again. And yet it's not back to normal because you've got all of this other stuff and we don't really know
Now your high
all
school's a
the
crime scene.
facts.
Like,
Right, our high school's a crime scene. When are we like, you aren't even asking when you wanna go back to school because
right.
none of us wanna go
Do I
back to
have
school at
to?
this point. Right, and, like, how are you gonna do that when that is the largest building on your school campus? It was the outside of the gym and that was the largest building on the school campus, and so, there were just, you know, so many classrooms and it held so many students and so I remember we had a week off school and I think it was a week, maybe no, maybe it was 2 weeks. And I had to go to a funeral for a family friend that same initial like first week. I went to 5 funerals that in 1 week. By that point, I had just turned 18 in April. I had been to more funerals than my parents had been to in their lifetime in 1 week's time. And and it was just this heaviness that like of like, "Whoa, what next?" And by now, we knew how many students were actually injured. One of them severely injured. We didn't even know if he was going to make it. And this was a kid who was on track to go to a military academy, very intelligent. I grew up with him around the corner from me. Like, just this kid who had a future that was who knows what it would have been. And it completely altered his life that day.
I mean, I think he shot didn't
completely.
9 others or something around that?
I wanna say there were 10 injured and 4 killed, if I remember the exact numbers.
Okay.
Um,
And a lot of
you
these
know,
people, like you said, they never recovered. Not
not
only were
even
they psychologically scarred for life, but some of them just had physical disabilities from being shot. I mean,
correct, correct. And not just and same with the ones who were held hostage. Some of them went on and, you know, handled life in a very productive way. I don't know if it had to do with what kind of help they got after after the hostage situation, or if they just could better compartmentalize some things. But then you have ones who were either held hostage in the building or just in the school who literally for you had 4 age groups who had kids from each of those classes from freshman to senior whose lives were completely altered in a negative trajectory for them.
can I ask you a question?
And yes,
Okay, so, the aftermath, just think about this though. It happened beginning of May and school ends at the beginning of June. And so
sure.
after that, you are at the mercy of your parents getting you help. And if or further your counseling, what type of counseling were given to you guys through the school, or was it something that they helped you do outside of the school?
No, so they had when we came back to school 2 weeks later, they had counselors on campus, and we didn't even for anyone who had classes in the C building, they basically had us hold class outside because they were still you know, cleaning up and redoing things and all
Windows
of
were
that.
broken. People broke windows to get out of the building.
E
I mean, there was
Correct, and
a lot of damage.
carpets had to be, like, flooring,
Right.
walls had to be
Right.
all
Right.
this stuff, so, um but they did have counselors on campus. But at that time too, they were just kind of, they were like, "Well, would you guys like to discuss this?" And some people would open up, other kids just really didn't want to talk about by this point, we've been talking about it so much in a different fashion, but
Right.
not realizing these people are actually here to help us cope with what could be come ahead of us, in our future because of this, or how to help us understand why it happened and all of those things. And none of us could really wrap our heads around it. At least that's how I felt. I don't know. I'm sure there's other students that were there that could probably have a better handle on how that was,
I
for
mean, not
them
what
or
teenagers
I
don't
felt like
necessarily like to share. I mean, we're not sharers, like,
no, and I
we like to be
felt
comfortable with
like
them. Like with Pam, our counselor, remember Pam? I don't know if she was still there your
mhm,
senior year,
yeah,
but like someone like
she
that you
was.
can open up with and talk to because, you knew her, you liked her, she could understand you. But some
But
people
we
like, you know,
Well, and those counselors were so affected by it, and our teachers were so affected by it. Like the people that we genuinely felt comfortable talking to it about with were not really in a capacity I felt
because they were victims too.
looking
They
back now, I'm like they were dealing with it too.
right.
No
Yeah.
wonder they weren't there for us. I think there was a time period where I felt like that the staff kind of failed us in the aftercare part. But then, you grow up and you realize they had their own crap that they were dealing with
Going
all
to
of it.
school, not knowing if, they're gonna be the next one, like Mr. Bryn.
Or the guilt of I couldn't protect my students.
Right.
I couldn't protect these kids,
And you think
and
about
in
it.
all honesty, I don't know that anyone really could have protected us. I think you may have slowed him d someone may like, if we had security officers or whatever, but I don't know that would you could have put a security officer in a booth, and they did after that, obviously, but I don't even know that that would have made a difference. Like, I think he would have somehow found a way to get in there and do whatever. Now, could it have slowed him down? Could be debated, yes or no, but I think if someone is gonna do something, whether it be via a gun, a knife, a bomb, like, whatever it may be, I think they're gonna find a way to do it. Someone who's mentally not there,
You know what? Like you
and thinking correctly, I should say.
so okay, so I'll back up just a second. So the counselors, the teachers, and you don't really think about it until later on in life that they also lost a classmate, their teacher, their fellow teacher, Mr. Brenz. They lost a friend as well. Now the students were all I mean, it's funny because we all loved our teachers and our teachers were great, and they were all friendly to us, but they too lost a fellow friend. And like you said, he was very young and taken way too soon. And this killer, I don't even want to say his name, but everybody can look him up. But because I don't want to give him any glory, but he, apparently, he didn't get past. The reason why his motive was he didn't get past in the civics portion of his course and Mr. Brenz, he says he was off by 1 point and that he
He
didn't
didn't
pass.
get to graduate with his
Right.
class.
Walk
Yeah.
the graduation with everybody, and he said that negatively affected him because in
Well, there
life,
was a lot of things that leading up to this happening that actually kinda sent him
over the
over
edge.
the edge.
Yeah.
And like I said, I knew him personally my freshman year. Obviously, he graduated my freshman year, but I would see him around town or neighborhood or, whatever, say hi, chit chat. However, leading in by now, he's 22 years old, by the time this is happening, or I think, yeah, he's 22 or
I think he graduated
twenty-three-ish.
2 years before, I think. My
He
brother
graduated yeah, he graduated my freshman year, which was 88, 89. So, yeah, it was 89. So he would have been 22-ish at the time of the shooting. But leading into what really kinda set the trajectory of him going this route was he had a job with HP at the time, um, months prior to this. Got fired from his job. His longtime girlfriend broke up with him, and therefore he wasn't working, doesn't have a girlfriend, feels like a loser, thinks his whole life has crashed in on him because he's a 22-year-old male or
right.
22-year-old in general. It doesn't have to be man or woman or whatever. And he looks at this as a complete, like, failure, but then thinks, "Oh, well, it's because I didn't graduate high school that these things happened." So, but backing up to, like, the counselors that were brought in for our first week of, um, back to school, and then they were on campus for a couple weeks, I believe, if I remember
We
correctly.
only had a
They
few
were
weeks left
not
of
they were
school.
not, like, employees of the school district. These were I think maybe they worked with the sheriff's department, or maybe they were just volunteering from their own offices. I don't really recall, but these were and I remember our teachers, it was just this very somber, like, feeling after when we came back to school. Like, the laughter was gone and the, like, joking around was gone, and you're on edge at every little noise you heard or so on. It was this from then until graduation, it was just this somber feeling. And took me a lot of years to, like, realized that it I don't remember having a fun last month of my senior year. Our senior year was completely wrecked. Our prom, although we went and we danced and but you're paying tribute to your fellow senior who's not there because he's dead and gone, and your friend who like all of these things. And so it was really hard for us to like really be happy about our graduation that year. We haven't even had a reunion since we graduated.
I know that's nuts. Like we've had a few. I haven't gone to all my
Yeah.
reunions, and I'm sorry. And I know, I know, Dee Dee, you're probably going to be like, "Yes, I know you've never to go." Um, but I'm just saying, like, I can't believe you guys have not had a reunion. I mean, we gotta work that out, you guys.
Yeah, I think one year there may have been maybe a combined picnic or something.
Maybe you should
And
come 91 and 92. We should get
yeah, I
together.
mean,
That would be
that'd be
fun.
awesome. But I maybe there was a combined picnic that somebody tried to put together, or I don't remember, you know, because I was adulting and raising little kids and like, so
I know.
but I do know living in the area afterwards, I saw the trajectory of so many lives happen in a very negative way, because I don't think they were given the tools to cope with it. Or and back then, I mean, in all honesty, like how much did we really know about PTSD or that kind of a trauma outside of military people? Like they weren't looking at it as, and even then, it wasn't even really brought up for military, like
Right.
post-war and those things. And so nowadays, there's so much more. But I think about any time like when Columbine happened, my heart just like sank for the
Cry.
community.
Every
Yes,
time I
I
would
just
see them, I would cry because it just brought back like, "Oh my god, like, I know what they're going through," and, like, I don't know, it's just sad when any child is, killed anyways, it just to me, it sinks in the just gets you.
well, and as time has gone on, so eventually our community did sort of, I wouldn't say healed from it, but we moved forward. We didn't really move on, but we moved forward as a whole community. But it does still hover. It still hovers even in today, and that was 3 decades ago, it
Can I
still
ask you a question?
hovers.
Can I ask you a question? How did
Mhm.
it, shape how you raised your kids in high school? And, like, was that always in the back of your mind, you know like something happened to your kids, or did you just try not to go there? Like, I know it's so dark, but, like, did it shape how you parented your kids a little differently?
I definitely picked up and dropped off my kids at school. I always had some sort of, it didn't change the way that I parented them, other than I kind of mentioned to them, if you see a kid struggling and you know that their home life isn't so great, and speak up for them. Speak up. If you find that they are saying these things, whatever, tell somebody. Like, if anyone ever says, "Oh, I just want to hurt a person or hurt the school or hurt the teacher or myself or whatever," tell somebody. Because in the moment, they may be joking about it, they may not be serious about it, but you never know.
And they're
The
reaching
other
in the way they're actually reaching out for help, but they're just not actually saying it.
Correct. So I also always taught them to always know where their exit is, look for a place they can hide, and never sit with your back to the door.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. So I never, to this day, and it wasn't even really
You gave me
something
chills again, damn it. God dang, I got goosebumpies.
Mhm. To
Dang it.
this day, I do not sit at a restaurant or a movie theater. Well, movie theaters are pretty, like, they're all kind of, but I have a very, like, I scan the area every time. And I didn't even realize I did that until, I mean, I think my youngest was, just, like, maybe a toddler, and I was out with, I don't know if it was a family member or a friend at the time, and they said to me, "Why don't you ever sit with your back to the door?" We went out to eat, and I went, "Because I can't see who's coming in, and I can't get out if I have to." And they went, Why would you constantly
I'm
think," I go, "Honestly, I've never thought about that until you mentioned it," you know? And so I did always teach my kids those things, like,
Did you
always, and
about the
always be
shooting?
aware.
Did you ever talk to them about the shooting and what you went
Yeah,
through?
yeah.
Yeah, so they know.
Maybe not, like, so much what I went through, but I've talked to them about it, and obviously, they grew up in the area. Um, I did move them to Wheatland School District when they went to junior high school, so they didn't go to high school at Lindhurst or Yuba Gardens, or at the time, Alicia, I believe, was actually closed, and it's not even there anymore.
I
They've
know, I
torn
heard
it
that.
down since.
Can I ask you a question?
Um,
You, did, dang it, I lost my I lost what I was gonna say. I know it was important. I'll think of it in a second, I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. So, but I did always
I know what it was.
kind of, oh, go ahead.
Because if I don't say it, I'm gonna forget it again. Did you ever think that there was gonna be a copycat? Because you were not like because you were already graduated, but like in the years as a, as a mom and everything, or just within the few years after being a teen or a 20-year, did you ever think that there might be like a copycat? And then didn't LHS our high school, didn't they put like fence it, and then they did some more high security after that? Like we had to do like go you had to go
They
through
did.
like metal detectors, right?
I don't remember. No, we did not have metal detectors when we were there. I don't know if they brought them in. I would almost bet they have them now.
Yeah.
Um, but because, and the reason I know kind of what's going on there is my daughter-in-law's dad is a teacher there now, and so I kind of do have some insight on what it's like now compared to when we were there.
Like when we went,
Um,
such a great, cheery,
we
fun-loving
had a
place to
great,
be. Yeah, and now I look at pictures like, I look at pictures like either, I don't know, it's on the internet or maybe I Googled like zoom in or something, and I'm like, it looks dreary, icky, sad, sad. Like not the
and
thing.
even my brother and your sister probably could give you insight too, because my brother is 2 years younger than me, so he was a sophomore that year, and even their classes ended up having kind of the same experiences we did, and it was fun, and yeah, it kind of hovered over them a little, but they were a little more able to kind of continue on in the way like we had been. But it seems like by the time my kids were going to high school, there was a huge just shift. In Lyndhurst in comparison to what we were like. And so by then I already knew I wanted my kids to go to, and actually my daughter ended up going to a charter school after freshman year, and it made me think I wish I would have done it sooner for her, but my son graduated from Wheatland High School. And so he went to Wheatland L his last his 4th and 5th grade year, and then he went to Bear River for junior high, and then high school he finished out with Wheatland. My daughter went to Bear River and then her first year at Wheatland High. And it was just I think I felt a little safer with them there, not saying it couldn't, but it was a much smaller community, much
Right?
smaller school by
Much
then.
more classes and environment.
Yeah.
My mom and dad and my sister, and we lived there my whole life. You know what I mean? They moved. they moved to Fresno. My dad accepted a job, and I think it was my sister's sophomore year. They were out of there and bought a big, beautiful house in Fresno. But they just needed a new, fresh start. They didn't want to be in that school. It was scary for them. And my sister didn't
Mhm.
want classes. It was, she couldn't cope. It was difficult, and so they just thought it was
I had a really hard time when I graduated going to college, and I started at Yuba College, which was is the community college,
right.
and I went 1 semester.
I actually ran
Yeah.
cross country for Yuba College.
Awesome. I went 1 semester and the anxiety of going to a school that large with that many people and, just obviously, literally just only had summer break between the Lindhurst graduation and going my 1st semester. I was like, "F this. I'm going to work and make money. I can always go back to school." And I did. I ended up going back to school when my kids were really young and finished 2 degrees, and anyways, that's a whole other adventure, but
I felt like I had to leave town too. Like I left and never wanted to come back. And I feel terrible because of the people we left behind. What would you say so we can to the people that were your fellow students and survivors? Is there any advice you would, or let's just put it this way, let's frame it like this. Anybody that has just gone through this themselves, is there any advice you would give the parents and the students, or how would you frame it to maybe help somebody that's had just gone through a school shooting and are trying to recover mentally from it? Do you have any
I
advice?
would s I would say get your kids into therapy. They're gonna fight you on it. They're not going to want to do it, and they may just sit there with that therapist for sessions on end, but take the time, spend the money, and do it for however long they need it. Um, Also, let them be with their friends too, because I think we had each other, and I think we all kind of helped each other in a way, but also I would say to them, be sure your friends are also helping those who may not have those resources available. Like, at least including them in, like, hey, maybe you want to come sit in my session with me, or let's find someone who will talk to you about this. Like, there are people who are qualified to do these things that would do it if you go to them. You just And maybe the parents need, well, and I would say, because kids are kids, especially teenagers, and they're not necessarily as resilient sometimes, when
Right.
things happen at certain times in their life. I think the parents need to be diligently, like, taking a proactive approach for their child and any child that may be struggling along the way, whose parents may not be paying attention. And we've all known those, like, those kids.
Right.
You always have, or whose parents may just be telling them, "Suck it up, get over it, like, you'll
Right.
be
Tough love.
fine."
Rub it with dirt.
You know,
Dirt
right,
right.
it's not, and we think of this day and age being a lot more softer, but it still happens, and the those kids are the ones who especially need the support of
I know
their
we were a lot
peers.
tougher. Like we said in the beginning,
Mhm.
we lived outdoors. Like we were tough and strong, and we skinned our knee, and we didn't tell our parents until like they came in and they're like, "Why do you have a hole in your jeans?" Like, "Oh, I fell." Like it wasn't like we went crying to mommy and said, "Please put a band-aid on it." But these children, and my son is one of them, love my kid, but these kids are a lot different now. For some reason, they are just, I don't know if it was all the technology and the video games, but they're not built like we are. We were Ford tough. Like they're
Right.
kind of
Well,
like Subaru tough right now.
and two, parents, like, I would say to the parents, be the advocate not just for your child, but your fellow parents. because those parents may not know how to handle the situation themselves. Maybe they feel like they failed their child and couldn't keep their child safe. Like maybe it's not just the students feeling this way, or but be the advocate for the parent and those child and your friends, like just your community and your friends. And sometimes squeaky wheel gets the grease. And if you have to like say it loud, say it to your newspaper, say it online, say whatever it is that's happening in that community, like, hey, we need we need some support here. Is there anyone qualified out there that could help us with, and bring a group of people together? Because sometimes people aren't willing because they feel singled out to be a one-on-one with someone, but you bring a group of people together and one starts talking and then the other start talking, and then pretty soon that person that felt alone, like they were the only ones who felt that way, realize I'm not the only one with these feelings. Like I'm not the only one who feels this way.
And
So,
same thing for the parent out there that thinks that their kid might be somebody
yes,
that could do this to their friends and could injure somebody. I mean, it's the scariest thing in the world for a parent to think that their kid could be like that. But if you do feel this way, you would be helping them, not hurting them to
correct,
bring
correct. And
bring
there's
them to
yeah,
therapy right away. Like,
and there's nothing wrong with saying I think my child is struggling, or I'm afraid that they may be, and just blatantly like pay attention. If your kid is locking their bedroom door and or doesn't want to come home or doesn't want to whatever, and you start noticing suspicious behaviors and things that are a little out of character or just the
it's better
wording
that
they're
you're on the front
using.
side of that than on the back side.
Yes,
If something happens,
because
you don't
there
want.
is in every scenario since our shooting, even in ours, there was warning signs and nobody spoke up until after the fact. There is always warning signs ahead of it actually happening. And
Right.
if someone or two, if just one person, whether it be they told made a complaint with the police officer, or they made a complaint with the teacher, or they made a complaint, and until somebody listened to them and took it seriously, you may have to tell more than one person, because one person might say, oh, you're just, maybe they're just stressed out, maybe they're just sad about their girlfriend breaking up with them, maybe oh they
You know
just
what parents know also too,
mhm,
they have, and women's intuition is a big thing. You
yes,
go off your gut. You know your kid, and you know that if there's something not right, you gotta speak up. You can't just be, can't pussyfoot around this kind of stuff. You
no,
because we are walking proof that this shit happens in America in the smallest communities. It could happen to you or your kids or your cousins or your aunt. Just if you know somebody that's struggling, you have to speak up. You have to say something because you could be saving lives. And you know
right,
what?
and
It doesn't mean to be this way. He doesn't want to go off and do it, but he feels like he's got no choice in the world. And this is his mark he wants to leave. And a lot of them want to go down in a blaze of glory and they want to be shot. This is how they want to die. And so you might be saving your own child's life because
right.
this is where they're headed. I'm
Right,
just
and in his case, that actually, I believe, if I remember correctly when it came out, that was kind of his, like, thinking was, like, "I'll just be taken out by whoever, police officers, and then I'll be done. I won't have to, but I've gotten my revenge." Well, the sad part is his home life from, you know, wasn't a supportive home life. It wasn't he was the quiet kid. He was bullied in school, and I hate to say it, I think we all have been bullied at some point, but
right.
he was a sensitive
Yeah,
guy,
he was
kid,
quiet. Like he wasn't a
super
troublemaker.
sensitive.
He wasn't a
No, not at
troublemaker. You
all.
wouldn't have known
Not
him.
even
You
a
wouldn't have known.
violent
Right.
kid,
No, I know. Yeah, he wasn't a bad
but
person. I mean, he'd sit at on our table, because we always sat on picnic tables. He'd
yeah,
sit at the picnic table and he grew up. I mean, he was hanging out with the guy I was infatuated with. I won't name names, but so we all knew him. He wasn't a bad, terrible person, but now he's on death row. But I don't think in California anybody ever gets put to death, so he'll probably be there forever. I think he's had appeals, but I don't think that they've gone to.
I think I think, and as you know, as time has gone on, and I know that, forgiveness is, I'm not saying that I forgive him at all, because I don't think, like, I think he knew better, like, but maybe he didn't, I don't know, but
I think he
I
did.
feel, I think he did. And but I think that he reached a breaking point and felt
Right.
he had absolutely nothing, no one, or whatever. And I don't, I just, a part of me is sad for him
I know, but
for those reasons. And
and
I'm
I
not
totally get
saying
what you're
that what
saying,
he did
but
was right by any means.
I'm kind of one of those people, like, I'm a conservative, but I believe killing somebody for killing somebody else is like an oxymoron. Like, it's ironic. But in this
No,
case,
I agree
I
with
never
you
thought,
there. And I'm not,
I never
yeah,
thought, well, in this case, I never thought that I'd ever want to have a death penalty on anybody, but I guess I do for him. And it's sad for me because I do struggle with the death penalty a lot because I always say, like, oh, you're going to put somebody to death for killing somebody? It's like the same thing.
it's
Like a
kind of,
life.
I agree with you there. I think, but I also am, laws are laws.
Right.
These are penalties. And I think that if you do the crime and the penalty is the death penalty by your peers who decided this, mind
Right.
you, like, you had, these weren't, now granted, it was a community of like close knit people. And would it be looked at a little differently these days? I don't know. And I'm not saying that,
Well, really, there was no,
no.
extenuating circumstances.
Well, and it was a cut and
He
dry.
got
Like, it
broken.
was
He broke. He came to a breaking point, and he psychotically went and did this because I don't think deep down he's like that. I don't think deep down he was that type of guy. I just think he had
correct.
a psychotic break, and this is what he wanted to do, and he wanted to take people out. And now you have to suffer those consequences, and that's going to be the chair one day. But I doubt it. If not in
Yeah, I
California.
agree. I agree, but when I say that it makes me sad for him, it just makes me sad in the time frame that leading up to when he broke. That,
Yeah.
like, he literally couldn't, felt he could not turn to someone, or that nobody recognized it. Well, or they
Right.
did and didn't say anything, because there
Or
were
did.
people that recognized weird behaviors and nobody reached out and said, "Hey man, are you okay? Like, are you really okay?" Like,
Right.
as a society, like, I think that, like, those things go a long way with people who are in desperate, like, times of their life, just to have someone say, "Are you really okay?"
You know what? I'm gonna
You
put a pin
know?
in,
Like,
but what
yeah,
I wanna say is, um, my dad said, which I hate quoting my dad because I don't really care about my dad anymore, but that's so terrible. But one thing he did say, and it sticks with me all the time, is life is nothing but lessons learned. And like you said, if you see somebody struggling, say something, you're helping them, you might be saving their life and the lives of others. And even if you say something and they weren't really planning on hurting someone, you're getting them help because obviously they're struggling and they're not coping it with it on their own. So I want to say thank you for really sharing. You really gave me a lot of your time and sharing all of their story. And I know there's a lot of underlying stories in all that we talked about today. And
for
I know
sure.
that there are other Lyndhurst High School people that have similar type stories, but maybe want to take it in a different direction. And I'm here for that. And I'm gonna make sure I post this on Facebook so all our friends can see it and maybe get a little bit of closure or maybe reopen it to talk about it. That it's a wound that's sitting there and festering, and maybe it just needs to be talked out a little bit. They could have been sitting on it for 40 years. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think honestly, like, I haven't really talked about it or in this detail other than saying I was a part of this in
Right.
history.
Isn't
Like,
it weird? Like, I haven't heard a lot of people go in depth about all the
no.
little things that led up and all the,
And
and their feelings about,
I
go ahead.
hope some people do I will share as well. I hope you do get more that will discuss this and from their perspective, because like I said, I would, and there are still many of us that grew up together that are still in the area. And we have all watched the struggles of those who struggled with it all this time. And it is so heart-wrenching, like, for us who were able to, whether it be, I don't know, just nature versus nurture, or just that we were able to go on, and maybe it did affect us in other ways. I'm not saying like it didn't, but those who just maybe didn't figure it out until much later in life, but the time period between then and when they figured it out was really, really not a great time for them. And I just hope that some of them can share their story, that we can hopefully at least get the word out there that may help someone somewhere down the line, that it's maybe some of those younger kids that it's happened to that will see this one day and go, "Oh, wow, like I wasn't the only one." Or,
Right.
all of
Or
our
like, you know what?
stories can
Maybe they just
help
went through
people.
it. Maybe they just went through it, and this is 40 years down the road, and
Yes.
it's okay to still have tears,
Mhm.
and, I feel like I'm
And be
connected.
afraid
Yeah,
and be, you
exactly.
know, all of those things. So I just hope others will share their story. And like I said, it's not my story to tell for them. And I just really think that we could do, I mean, I don't know that you would call it, we could do some good in the world with it, but I think we could definitely like help
Awareness.
others, awareness, and then help others, whether it be parents, students, people struggling, thinking about doing these things. Like, it's
And
not
also
the end of the
for all
world.
also for all the LHS people out there listening, I'm hoping it's more than the 20 people that I think have gotten onto my show so far. I want you all to know that, like, we still are a community, regardless of what jurisdiction we live in or how far we've run away from the community. Like I did, I ran away, but I mean, we still love
Absolutely.
each other. We still are there for one another. And you bring us all back in a room, and all we're going to do is hug each other. And
Yep.
probably drink a beer together too, but
Yeah, and it'll be like we had never, like, missed a beat,
yes,
really. Like,
yes,
that's what's the great thing about it, is to be like, only now we'd be talking about kids and grandkids and, like,
legit.
adventures and whatever, or struggles. Like, some of us have had
Right.
struggles with their own kids and health issues and, like, all of those things, because we think we're 20, but we're 50s
I
ish,
know. I know.
so, like, it's all of those things. But yeah, um so
I use the
I
bright
just
light
hope.
so you don't see my wrinkles. No, I'm just teasing.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
No, I'm
I'm
just
gonna
messing.
age. I don't even dye my hair, so I'm gonna age out gracefully, I guess.
I
So,
dye my hair, you can see it, but it's gray, and I just got it done. I was like, "Stop growing."
yeah,
Anyways,
yeah.
okay. I love you, Tanya,
I
and
love you. It was so
thank
good
you for
catching up,
I know, we gotta do this again. Well, we will do this again.
for
We have
sure.
another episode we're gonna do together, but those of you out there, from LHS, you wanted I think this might be more than one part episode, so I'd love to hear from you, and, let's, continue the healing process. This has been actually, I learned a lot more than I did know. Thank you, because you told me more things. I probably should have consulted with you before I wrote the book, but, definitely, I definitely learned some things I didn't know, and I'm glad that you shared and took the time. And I'm
Yeah,
hoping
well,
people will
thank
get
you.
something out of it.
And let's
So,
catch up on my podcast one of these days too.
yes.
So,
Oh, that's
yeah.
right.
So
Your podcast, where can they find it, and what's the name so we can?
so I've been on a little hiatus. I had some life happen. So, but it's called Life Across the Map.
Okay,
And I've got, I believe, 5 episodes out, but it's coming back, and it's basically just conversations with people that I found inspiring, and I think they're doing awesome things in the world. But I mean, Life Across the Map could also be like my people I grew up with, and I think they're doing, they don't have to be doing worldly great things, but like just catching up and hearing stories about life and travels and things like that. So check it out.
I
You can
totally life across the map. I can't wait. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
and you can find it on Spotify. I'm not sure if it's hit Apple or not, but yeah, give it a listen. It's a little rough in a few episodes. Got some great guests on there. Also,
I'm just
you
starting to. So I'm new at this as well, so all mine are
Yep,
very rough. I'm like,
and you can also find it on Instagram at Life Across the Map Podcast. Or you can find me at Trixie4474 on Instagram and Facebook under Tanya Austin Cameron. So that's where I'm at.
awesome. I thank you so much for spending the time with me, and
Okay, you too.
I'm excited to speak off camera. So let's say goodbye and let's
Okay,
talk goodbye, everybody.
goodbye.
I was racing through the fear, praying you were safe inside. Heart pounding, tears falling, as sirens split the sky. The halls we once walked were shattered that day, when a friend became the danger and light was swept away. Beeman stood brave, he gave more than most, took a bullet for a soul. Now he's our honored ghost. Jason smiled like sunshine, loved a Garth Brooks song. Gone too soon, but in my heart he still sings along. So I carry you with me, each step that I take, through the silence and sorrow, through the heartbreak. Judy so young, Brent so loved, you're dancing in the stars now, watching from above. We miss you, and we're sorry you had to go this way, but your memory keeps us going every day. It wasn't just a tragedy, it was names and lives and dreams. It was laughter that still echoes through the Lindhurst memories. The world was at your feet, but hate took you from the race. Now we light our candles, trying to fill the empty space. This pain is real, but so is love, and we still feel your light shining from above. We'll say your names, we'll tell your story. You live on in our hearts, in all your glory. So we carry you with us, through the years and the pain, through healing and heartbreak, through sunshine and rain. Judy, Prince, Jason, and Beeman too, we'll never forget, we'll always carry you. Ooh, ooh, ooh. May 1st, 1992. We remember Lindhurst strong forever.